Okay, good morning. If you remember, last lesson I told you I was going to teach you how to draw and sketch, label and annotate the different types of plate boundary. The first type of plate boundary is a constructive plate boundary. The reason it's called constructive is because the plates pull apart. And when the plates move apart in the opposite directions from each other, that creates a space for the magma beneath to rise to the surface. So if you follow the step-by-step instructions now, I'll show you what's actually happening. So we have two oceanic plates. That means they're on the ocean floor. And they're moving in opposite directions from each other. The reason they're moving in the opposite directions is because from deep down inside the mantle, convection currents bring the heat to the surface, and the heat then spreads in opposite directions. And when that does, it pulls the plates with it. So, as the plates pull apart, the gap in between the two gets wider. The magma from underneath, within the mantle, then rises to fill this space. As it does so, it begins to create new land. And it starts off quite small, okay, but gradually it begins to get bigger and bigger. And so what we end up with on a constructive plate boundary is we end up with volcanoes which could be on the ocean floor, but ultimately they could reach the surface, in which case you would have islands on the surface as the plates pull apart. So you would have something like this. And in this case, my sea is going to have to be orange. No, it's actually going to be blue. So you would have the sea here. Most of this would be underneath, and the magma from inside the mantle begins to rise up and create volcanoes or island arcs. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a series of labels on for you to sequence this event. I'm going to stop the video recording now, put the labels on, and then talk you through. Okay. Right, as you can see, I've now put some annotated labels underneath this diagram. It's too difficult to put all of the diagram labels on the picture itself. However, if you're drawing something in your book, you could actually put the labels around. So let me go through the process. So you've got two oceanic plates. Those are the more dense plates on the ocean floor, and they are moving in the opposite directions. This then creates a gap along the plate boundary. So there's your gap. Then what happens, number 3, the magma from inside the mantle begins to rise to fill that gap. And eventually, number 4, new mountains form. Initially, those mountains form under the sea. But sometimes, for example, number 5, Iceland is an example where an island has actually reached the surface. In fact, there are thousands of mountains underneath the sea in the Atlantic Ocean. And it gives rise to something called the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. It's the longest and most extensive range of mountains in the world. They're just underneath the ocean. So a constructive plate boundary is one that creates new land when the plates pull apart and the magma rises to fill that, creating either volcanoes or mountains.